Spirituality means bypassing the body and the mind. With this clear and simple truth, Dr. Baffour Jan invites us into a journey of awakening. He explains that our human presence, as we usually live it, is a kind of prison. The body as a cell, the mind as a compound. And that real freedom comes only when we rise beyond both. In this teaching, he guides us through the illusions of wealth, power, and the senses, showing why they can never bring lasting joy, and points us toward the bliss of spirit, which is constant and eternal. He reminds us that heaven is not a place to be reached after death, but a living state carried within when we awaken. Through awareness and the gentle practice of the breath, we are shown how to become not prisoners of body and mind, but warders of spirit, awake and aware, serving with compassion while living free. Chapter 1. Freedom as Imprisonment. Let us pause and look deeply at the word we so casually use every day. Freedom. Many of us think we know it, we taste it. We celebrate it in our own small ways. We imagine freedom is the ability to move where we wish, to speak what we desire, to carry money in our pocket, or to enjoy the blessing of good health. Yet, when we examine closely, we find that these forms of so-called freedom are fragile, impermanent, and deceptive. They offer a taste of liberty, but never its fullness. They are like decorations painted on the walls of a prison cell. You may enjoy the sight of the paint. You may even convince yourself that it makes the cell brighter, but you are still behind the bars. In this way, human life, as most of us live, it is nothing less than imprisonment, a confinement of the spirit within layers of body and mind, within layers of illusions that convince us we are free, while the chains remain firmly around our ankles. To make this truth clearer, I invite you to imagine the prison itself. Consider a man placed inside. He is brought past the main gate, and instantly a restriction falls upon him. The world beyond the gate is gone. The vast countryside where he could walk freely, where he could wander without limit, where the air was his to breathe and the horizon his to pursue. Inside the prison walls, he can still move. Yes, but the movement is narrow. He can walk only where the walls allow. He can see only as far as the gates permit. This, my friends, is the first taste of bondage. Now take this man deeper. Lead him not only through the main gate, but into the inner cells, the locked rooms of stone and iron where even the small yard is taken away. His space shrinks. His choices vanish. His reality grows smaller and darker. This is the second taste of bondage, the prison within the prison. He may still be alive, still breathing, but he no longer calls the shots. His body is restricted. His mind is compressed. His life is contained. And so it is with us. The body is the cell, the narrow chamber where we confine our awareness when we identify ourselves solely as flesh and bone. We eat, we sleep, we feel hunger, we chase pleasure, and we believe this is life. But that belief is nothing more than the illusion of a prisoner who has never seen beyond the bars. When, by some effort of imagination, meditation, or sleep, we step beyond this body awareness, we feel for a moment that we have entered a large yard. The mind opens up dreams, fantasies, ideas, memories, and hopes. Compared to the body alone, it feels vast. We say to ourselves, here is freedom, the freedom to imagine, to think, to create. Yet do not be deceived, for even this wider yard is still inside the prison walls. The gate remains shut, and the guard still watches. You are still confined, though the cell has grown larger. True freedom is not found in the body, nor is it found in the mind. It is found only when we step out of the entire prison itself, when the gate swings open and we walk beyond into the vast open sky of spirit, unbounded and eternal. When you sleep at night, you catch a faint echo of this possibility. The body falls still, the senses retreat, and the mind drifts into its landscapes of dreams. For those hours you feel lighter, less confined. But do not mistake this temporary escape for liberation. Sleep is not freedom. Dreams are not freedom. They are still movements inside the walls, still footsteps on the inner floor. You may forget your chains for a moment, but you are still chained. And when the morning comes, you are pulled back, pushed into the body once more. Return to your cell with no choice in the matter. True freedom is not sleep, nor dream, nor any fleeting imagination. True freedom is the state in which body and mind no longer imprison the spirit. The state in which you know yourself as spirit alone. Now reflect with me on the difference between the prisoner and the warder. Inside every prison there are many inmates and only a few guards. The inmates are numerous, their heads bowed, their movements restricted, their days marked by suffering and routine. The warders, however, walk among them but are not of them. They are not bound by the sentence. They carry the keys. At the end of the day, they step out of the gates and return home. They are present in the prison, but not imprisoned. Spiritually, most of humanity are prisoners, chained to the body's cravings and the mind's endless chatter. Yet a few awaken, a few rise beyond the walls, a few become warders, free souls who remain in this world not because they must, but because they choose to serve, to guide, to help others find their own way out. And so I ask you, are you a prisoner or are you a warder? Are you bound by desires, fears, and identities that chain you down? Or are you free in spirit, walking here only as a servant of truth? The difference is vast, but the passage is open to all. Every prisoner has the potential to one day become a warder. Every soul locked in body and mind has the possibility of stepping into spirit. And yet let us not be naive. This passage is not crossed by titles, rituals, or empty beliefs. It is not enough to say, I belong to this faith, I carry this scripture, I chant this mantra. These are decorations, not keys. You may wear the robes, you may repeat the words, you may gather the symbols, but if your life is still ruled by the temptations of the flesh, if your thoughts still trap you in endless cycles of craving and fear, then you remain a prisoner dressed in fancy garments. True freedom has nothing to do with outer religion. It has everything to do with inner realization. Until the spirit knows itself as spirit, until you know that you are not body, not mind, but something vast and eternal beyond both, the gate remains closed. This, then, is the first and most urgent task of the spiritual seeker, to see the prison for what it is. Many people live and die without ever realizing they were inmates. They believe the narrow yard is the whole world. They believe the decorated walls are true beauty. They believe the fleeting pleasures of the body and the endless games of the mind are life itself. Only when the soul awakens does it see that these are walls, that these are chains, that these are illusions. The first step to freedom is not to escape, but to recognize where you are. Once you see the bars, once you admit the confinement, then the journey begins. Denial is the first barrier. The world says, I am free because I can choose. But look closer. Your choices are shaped by your conditioning, your desires, your fears, your past. Is that freedom? No, it is only another layer of the prison disguised as liberty. So I say to you, do not settle for the yard when the sky is waiting. Do not mistake the opening of one door for the unlocking of the gate. Do not be satisfied with sleep when awakening is your birthright. The soul was not made for chains. The soul was not made for bars. The soul was made for boundlessness. And this boundlessness is what we call true freedom. The joy of spirit, untouched by the body, untouched by the mind, untouched by circumstance, is the freedom every religion hints at, every scripture whispers about, and every awakened soul proclaims. But until you taste it yourself, until you live it in your own being, it remains only a story told by others. That is why I ask again, are you free? Search your heart honestly. If your joy rises and falls with money, with success, with reputation, with the approval of others, then you are not free. If your peace depends on circumstances going your way, then you are not free. If your identity is bound to a label, a body, a role, or a belief, then you are not free. Freedom does not depend on conditions. Freedom is the state of spirit knowing itself as eternal. It is unshaken by loss, unbroken by suffering, untouched by time. That, my brothers and sisters, is the freedom worth seeking. Chapter 2. Prisoners and Warders. Let us sit with this image of the prison a little longer, for it is more than a metaphor. It is a mirror held up to the condition of every human soul. Inside every prison there are two kinds of people. The first are the prisoners themselves, countless men and women locked in their cells, their lives measured by walls, their days regulated by a schedule imposed upon them. They wake when the bell rings, they eat what is given, they move when they are told to move, and they sleep when the lights are turned out. Their choices are stripped away, until what remains is only survival inside confinement. These are the majority, but walking among them are the warders, the prison guards. They carry keys, they open and close the doors, they give instructions, they keep watch. Yet at the end of the day, they are not confined. They can step outside the walls and breathe the free air. They are present in the prison, but the prison does not define them. In the same way, my friends, the vast majority of humanity live like the prisoners, bound to body and mind, while a few walk like warders, awake and aware, free in spirit even while moving among those still confined. Let us look closely at the difference. The prisoner is there by force. He does not choose his confinement. It is placed upon him. He lives by reaction, adjusting himself to circumstances, trying to find small pleasures inside a system of restriction. If food is served, he eats. If exercise is allowed, he walks. If the lights go out, he sleeps. His entire life is a response to conditions beyond his control. In the same way, when we are identified with the body and the mind, we live reactively. The body hungers and we respond. The mind desires and we chase. The world praises us and we rise. The world criticizes us and we fall. Like prisoners, we are tossed about by forces outside our true essence. Now contrast this with the warder. The warder may walk the same halls, breathe the same air and see the same walls. But his mind is not bound. He is there not by sentence but by function. He knows that beyond the walls his home awaits, his family awaits, his freedom awaits. He is in the prison, but not of the prison. Spiritually, this is the one who has awakened. He still wears a body, he still uses a mind, but he knows that he is neither. He is spirit, eternal and free. And so he may move among the bound, yet he remains unbound. This awareness is everything. Awareness is the key that separates prisoner from warder. The prisoners are asleep, unaware of who they truly are. They believe the walls are real, the confinement permanent, the labels absolute. They live in ignorance, not because truth is absent, but because truth is ignored. The warder, however, is awake. He knows he is not the walls, not the uniform, not the schedule. He remembers his true home, his greater identity, his freedom that cannot be taken. And because of this remembrance, he cannot be trapped. So it is with the soul. When we forget who we are, we live as prisoners. When we remember, we live as warders. The same body remains, the same mind remains, the same world remains, but everything changes because awareness has shifted. You may still see suffering, still encounter challenges, still walk in the halls of this world, but you no longer live as one confined. You are free in the midst of bondage, awake in the midst of sleepers. Now let me ask you plainly, how many of us live as warders? How many can truly say, I am not this body, I am not this mind, I am spirit eternal? Very few. Look at the masses of humanity. People rise each day to chasing money, chasing pleasure, chasing recognition, chasing distractions. They rise when the body demands and sleep when the body collapses. They laugh when the mind is entertained and weep when the mind is tormented. They think this is freedom, but it is not. It is only life inside the cell. True freedom is rare, and those who taste it are few. The awakened are like the warders, and the warders you can count on your fingers. This is why in every generation, in every age, the number of saints, sages, and liberated beings is small, while the number of the bound is beyond measure. But remember this: every prisoner has the potential to become a warder. Every soul locked in ignorance carries within itself the seed of awakening. There is no confinement so deep that it cannot be transcended, and here lies the beauty of spirit. When a prisoner awakens, when he walks out of his confinement, something extraordinary happens. He does not merely run away and forget the others. No, his heart is moved with compassion. He remembers the suffering of those still inside. He remembers the nights of despair, the days of hunger, the endless repetition of confinement. And so, out of love, he returns. Not as a prisoner this time, but as a warder. He says, I will serve, I will carry the key, I will walk among those still bound and remind them of what is possible. This is the path of the liberated soul. He does not abandon the world. He re-enters it with a new identity. He may wear the same body, speak the same language, live in the same society, but his awareness has shifted. He is there by choice, not by compulsion. He is there to guide, not to suffer. He is there to awaken others, not to seek his own escape. So let us not despair if we still find ourselves as prisoners. The journey from inmate to warder is open to all. It is not reserved for a special class of people. It is not locked away for saints of old. It is the birthright of every soul. But it requires a shift. It requires awakening. It requires the courage to see the prison for what it is, and the determination to seek what lies beyond the walls. This awakening does not happen through belief alone. It does not come by repeating, I am free, while still living as bound. It comes through direct realization, through inner knowing, through the experience of spirit beyond body and mind. And once you taste this, even for a moment, you will never be the same. You may still move through the prison, but you will know in your heart that it is not your home. You will carry the key of awareness, and that key will never be taken from you. Now reflect on the numbers. Inside every prison, the prisoners are many, and the warders are few. Spiritually, it is the same. Look across the world. Billions live caught in fear, anxiety, desire, anger, and illusion. Their minds are restless. Their bodies are driven by habit. Their lives are marked by cycles they cannot control. They are many. But those who have awakened, those who live in constant joy, constant peace, constant awareness, they are few. You can count them on your hands. And yet the presence of even a few is enough to light a path for the many. Just as a single warder can manage hundreds of prisoners, a single awakened soul can inspire thousands to seek their own liberation. This is why sages, prophets, and teachers throughout history have carried such power. They are not greater beings than us. They are simply warders among prisoners. They remember who they are, and their remembrance awakens remembrance in others. Therefore, my beloved, let us set our aim high. Do not be content with life in the yard. Do not be satisfied with temporary pleasures that vanish like smoke. Do not cling to identities that confine you in smaller and smaller cells. Aspire to awaken. Aspire to rise. Aspire to carry the key of awareness in your own hand. For when you awaken, you not only free yourself but also become a light for others. You become a warder among prisoners, a guide among the lost, a reminder of the truth that lies beyond the walls. And in this service your freedom deepens. For freedom that is kept to oneself is incomplete, but freedom that is shared becomes eternal. So I say again, are you a prisoner or are you a warder? Are you living by reaction or by awareness? Are you bound by the body and mind, or do you stand free in spirit? The choice is before you. The journey is possible. The gate awaits. Step out, awaken, and return as one who carries the key. For this is the destiny of every soul. To rise from prisoner to warder, from bound to free, from ignorance to awareness, from darkness to light. Chapter 3. The Futility of Wealth, Power, and the Senses. Let us turn our gaze to another great illusion, one that traps the majority of humanity in endless pursuit. We are told by society that freedom is found in possessions, in wealth, in influence, and in the pleasures of the senses. Many live their entire lives chasing these things, believing that once they are obtained, happiness will follow. A man says, "If only I had more money, I would be free." Another says, "If only I were healthy, if only I had a better position, if only people respected me, then I would truly know freedom." Yet observe carefully. Those who attain these things still remain restless. The wealthy are anxious about keeping their wealth. The powerful are afraid of losing their influence. The healthy live in fear of sickness. And the famous suffer under the weight of expectation. This is not freedom. This is only another layer of bondage, a new cell with brighter paint on the walls. To tie your happiness to money, to power, or to the senses, is to tie yourself to a rope that is constantly fraying. It may hold for a moment, but it will snap, and when it does, you fall into despair. Look at the pleasures of the senses. The body offers us sights, sounds, tastes, touches, and smells, and we are lured into believing that fulfillment lies there. A delicious meal brings delight, but only until the stomach is full. A song lifts the heart, but only until silence returns. A touch warms the skin, but only until it fades away. These pleasures are real in their moment, but they are impermanent by nature. They rise, they peak, they pass. And because they pass, they cannot provide the unbroken joy the soul craves. We mistake the taste of sugar for lasting sweetness, the warmth of fire for eternal heat. Yet sugar dissolves, and fire burns out. So, it is with all pleasures of the senses. They do not last. And because they do not last, they cannot be the foundation of true happiness. To build your house on them is to build on sand. When the waves of life come, the structure collapses. Even the pleasures of the mind, which seem higher than those of the body, remain fragile. The mind delights in ideas, in fantasies, in memories, in hopes for the future. These can stretch further than the senses, but they too belong to the prison yard. They are still within the walls. You may escape the body's hunger by retreating into thought, but thought itself is unstable. One moment the mind praises you, the next it condemns you. One moment it paints visions of success, the next it imagines failure. To depend on the mind for happiness is to sit on a branch that can break at any time. You may believe yourself flying, but the fall comes swiftly. This is why even those who achieve great intellectual victories, even those who discover, create, or govern, still find themselves restless. The joy they expected does not endure. It is as fleeting as the applause of a crowd, which begins loud and ends silent. Understand this. Happiness promised by body or mind is a promissory note, not the treasure itself. It says, if you attain this, you will be satisfied. But when you attain it, satisfaction does not stay. It visits, then departs. You are left hungrier than before. The cycle repeats endlessly. A man eats, feels full, and then hunger returns. He earns, feels secure, and then fear of loss rises. He loves, feels whole, and then separation wounds him. Back and forth, up and down, tossed like a prisoner between the walls of pleasure and pain. This is not the bliss of spirit. This is the cycle of bondage. The soul was not made to live in this cycle forever. The soul longs for that which does not rise and fall, that which is constant, eternal, and untouched by change. Consider the patient in a hospital. He is not free, for his body binds him with illness. But look again, and you see the nurses and doctors walking the same halls. Yet they are not patients. They move freely, serving, helping, but they are not confined by sickness. Spiritually, most of us are like the patients, bound to the conditions of body and mind. But the awaken are like the doctors, moving among us not in bondage, but in service. They know what true health is, and they remind us that our illness is temporary, our bondage an illusion. Once they too were patients. Once they too suffered. But they found the cure. They drank the medicine of truth. And now they return to help others do the same. So we must learn to question the promises of the senses and the mind. They tell us, just one more taste, just one more possession, just one more achievement, and you will be happy. But it is never enough. The appetite grows, the craving deepens, the cycle repeats. The soul cannot be satisfied by what is temporary. To chase permanence in impermanence is folly. It is like trying to hold water in your hands. No matter how tightly you grip, it slips through your fingers. Real joy does not come from outside, and it does not come from thought. It comes from the spirit itself, from the essence of what you are when you step beyond body and mind. This joy is not pleasure, for pleasure ends. It is not happiness, for happiness shifts. It is bliss, unbroken, eternal, untouched. Bliss does not depend on conditions. Bliss is the natural state of the spirit. This is why I say wealth cannot give you freedom. Power cannot give you freedom. Even the finest pleasures cannot give you freedom. At best, they give you moments of escape, brief holidays from the prison, but not release. At worst, they deepen your chains, making you more addicted, more fearful, more bound. The truth is simple, yet it is hard for the mind to accept. True freedom comes only when you rise beyond body and mind, only when you realize yourself as spirit, as that which does not change, as that which is already blissful, can you be free. Until then, every treasure you chase will disappoint, every pleasure you hold will vanish, and every freedom you claim will prove false. So let us turn inward. Let us ask, what am I seeking in money, in power, in pleasure? Is it not joy? Is it not peace? Is it not love? Yet these are not contained in objects. They are qualities of the spirit itself. You already carry them, but they are covered by the noise of body and mind. You search outside because you have forgotten the well within. True freedom is remembering. It is awakening to what is already present. It is discovering that you do not need to chase joy, for joy is your nature. You do not need to grasp peace, for peace is your essence. You do not need to beg for love is the fragrance of your spirit. When you realize this, you stop chasing shadows and begin living in the light of truth. That is freedom, and that alone satisfies the longing of the soul. Chapter 4. Addiction to body and mind. Sit with this quietly and feel how it lands within you. The soul longs for an open sky, yet most days we live as if a small room were the whole universe. We decorate that room with familiar habits, familiar stories, familiar pains, and then we call it home. That is the nature of addiction to body and mind. It is the slow agreement to live inside a narrow pattern until the pattern feels like life itself. The body says, reach for this taste, reach for this touch, reach for this comfort. And the mind supplies the reasons, the excuses, the philosophies to make it all seem noble. Little by little, a thread becomes a rope, and a rope becomes a chain. We are not sinners in need of scolding. We are sleepers in need of waking. Addiction does not make you evil. It makes you smaller than your nature. And anything smaller than spirit will finally ache and ask for more. Watch the rhythm of a day, and you will see the pattern. Desire rises. Attention rushes toward it. A moment of pleasure blooms, and then the bloom falls. The mind tries to hold the petals in the air by thinking and rethinking, but the petals must drop because the branch they grew on was temporary. The body cannot be a permanent source of joy because it was never built to be permanent. The mind cannot carry unbroken peace because thought is made of motion. When motion pauses, fear arrives. When motion speeds up, anxiety arrives. So we keep moving, keep chasing, keep feeding the machine in the hope that the next prize will not dissolve like the last. The trap is not the pleasure itself. The trap is the belief that pleasure can become a home. No traveler can live forever in an inn, and no soul can live forever on a sensation. Consider how attachment grows. At first there is curiosity, a simple tasting of an experience. If it pleases, a track is laid down in the nervous system, and the mind marks the spot with a bright flag. Return here, it whispers. The feeling lives here. You return, and then once more. And the track becomes a pathway. Soon the pathway becomes a road, and the road becomes the only route you take, even when it no longer leads to the feeling you are chasing. That is the cruelty of addiction. It outlives the very sweetness that birthed it. The cup grows larger while the sip grows smaller. The same pattern plays out with praise, with status, with victory, with the glitter of attention. The first taste glows, the 10th is dull. Yet we keep moving along the same road because the road itself has become the habit that pretends to be happiness. There is a moment after every peak when the valley arrives. If you can meet that valley with honest eyes, wisdom has already begun. The body says, I am empty again. Fill me. The mind says, I am restless again. Distract me. The soul hears both and remembers a deeper nourishment. To remember does not mean to reject the body or to silence the mind. It means to give them their proper place. The body is a useful garment, the mind a useful instrument, but neither is the owner. Addiction begins when the instrument pretends to be the musician. The drum demands to lead the song, and the flute insists on choosing the key. Of course the music breaks down. Of course the rhythm stumbles. The musician is spirit, and until spirit holds the baton, the orchestra of a life will keep playing a tune that starts loud, wobbles in the middle, and fades before the last note is due. You may ask how the chain is forged so tightly. It is forged by repetition mixed with meaning. Repetition lays the metal. Meaning locks it. We do not simply repeat a behavior, we tell a story around it. I need this to relax. I deserve this after a hard day. Without this, I cannot create, cannot love, cannot sleep. Soon, the story protects the habit like armor, and anyone who questions the armor feels like an enemy. The tragedy is not that we defend a pleasure. The tragedy is that we defend our prison. To break the chain, we must become gently suspicious of the stories that guard it. Ask whether the belief is true right now, not yesterday, not in a frightened future, but now. Ask whether peace is actually delivered or only promised in small, glittering notes that never quite cash when the heart is most in need. Notice how the pendulum swings between indulgence and guilt. After the chase comes a shadow. The body feels heavy, the mind grows harsh, and the spirit is pushed to the back of the room. That harshness is not holiness. Shame is only another mask the prison wears to keep you circling the same corridor. You are not meant to whip yourself into freedom. The whip is still a chain. What liberates is clear-seeing joined to steady practice. Clear-seeing says this sweetness is temporary and beautiful, but it cannot be my home. Steady practice says I can pause before I reach, breathe before I swallow, feel before I flee. In that small sacred pause, the soul re-enters the conversation. And where the soul speaks, space opens. Where space opens, choice returns. Where choice returns, the chain has already begun to rust. Let us speak plainly about the 5 doors of the body. Through sight we chase brightness. Through sound we chase rhythm. Through taste we chase comfort. Through touch we chase warmth. Through scent we chase memory. There is nothing sinful in these doors. The error is in trying to build an eternal temple out of seasonal wood. A festival is not meant to be every hour, or it ceases to be a festival. The senses were designed for appreciation, not occupation. When appreciation ripens into gratitude and passes, it leaves a cleanliness behind. When occupation hardens into compulsion, it leaves a residue that asks for more, even when more cannot be given. To free yourself is not to close the doors. It is to stand in the doorway as a master. Let the visitor enter and depart. Offer tea and farewell. Do not let the visitor move in and rename the house. Now look at the mind with the same loving clarity. Thought is a servant that loves to pretend it is king. It will draft plans, rewrite history, argue both sides of a case, and crown itself for winning an argument it started. It will offer you rehearsals of danger and fantasies of rescue, then charge you a fee in peace for attending the show. The mind is brilliant at keeping you busy, because busyness feels like control. Addiction to thought is the hidden river that feeds all other addictions. When the mind cannot sit with raw silence, it seeks noise. When it cannot sit with an open question, it invents a crooked answer. The practice is not to smash the mind, but to anchor it. Give it a simple, holy labor, like returning to breath, like resting attention in the heart, like repeating a word that points beyond words. Anchored thought becomes a bridge. Unanchored thought becomes a storm. Some say the body's urges are too strong, the mind's habits too old, the world's invitations too bright. They forget the quiet power that stands behind the eyes. Spirit is not a candle trembling in a draught. Spirit is the sky in which the winds arise and pass. When you taste even a breath of that sky, something shifts in how you meet craving. The pull is felt, but the obedience loosens. The thought is heard, but the contract is unsigned. You still live in a world of offers, yet you are no longer a buyer at every stall. This is not suppression. This is sovereignty. Suppression cuts off the river and makes a flood downstream. Sovereignty walks beside the river and guides its curve until it waters the right field. The same energy that fed addiction can feed devotion. The same fire that burned you can warm 100 homes. Understand also the kindness of failure on this path. You will reach for the old rope and find your hand around it again. You will swear off the old pattern and wake to find it whispering at your door. Do not make an idol of perfection. The soul grows by honesty, humility, and practice, not by performance. If you fall forward into awareness. If you forget, remember sooner. If you are harsh, soften. Measure progress, not by how rarely you stumble, but by how quickly you return. Every return polishes the mirror. Every return thins the wall. Every return teaches the body that safety can be found without clinging, and teaches the mind that clarity can be found without spinning. Freedom is not a single leap. It is 1,000 quiet turnings toward what is real. At last, let us name the simple promise beating underneath all of this. You are not trying to become worthy of joy. You are discovering that your nature is joy. You are not trying to build a permanent house out of pleasures and ideas. You are returning to the home that was never built, and so can never fall. When the chain of addiction loosens, you do not lose the world, you receive it properly. A meal becomes a blessing rather than a bargain. Music becomes prayer rather than distraction. Touch becomes sacrament rather than proof. Praise becomes gratitude rather than fuel. And because your joy is no longer rented from objects and outcomes, it cannot be evicted when seasons change. This is why the soul seeks freedom from addiction to body and mind. Not to escape life, but to live it as it truly is, wide and awake, with hands open and heart unafraid. Chapter 5. Freedom, Awake and Aware. And the door of the breath. Beloved brothers and sisters, let us now explore the motto that guides this path. Freedom, awake and aware. These are not just 3 beautiful words to decorate a wall or to place on a banner. They are the distilled essence of the journey. Freedom means liberation from bondage. Awake means no longer sleeping in illusion. Aware means living in the clear light of spirit. Most of humanity is asleep, not because they are physically unconscious, but because their souls have been lulled into slumber by the constant noise of body and mind. They dream they are awake, yet they stumble in darkness. They imagine they are choosing freely, but their choices are dictated by desire, fear, and habit. The truth is always here. shining like the sun. But in our slumber, we pull the curtains and live as if night has fallen. To be awake is to open the curtains, to allow the light of spirit to dawn upon us once again. To be aware is to stand in that light without turning away. Only then does freedom take root. Ignorance, my friends, is not the absence of truth. Ignorance is ignoring the truth that is already here. The word itself tells the story. We ignore what is present. We turn our face from it. We busy ourselves with shadows and illusions. In this state of ignoring, we are like a man who sits in a garden of fruit, but starves because he insists on looking at the empty sky. The fruit is there, ripe and waiting, yet he says, "It is not here, it must be elsewhere." So he ignores what would nourish him and remains hungry. In the same way, the Spirit's bliss, peace, and love are always here, but we ignore them by identifying with body and mind. We say, "Happiness will come when I achieve this, when I gain that, when I escape this." We ignore the present and chase the horizon, and in doing so we remain prisoners. Awakening is not bringing in a new truth. It is ceasing to ignore the one that was here all along. So how do we awaken? How do we become aware in the midst of so much noise, so many distractions, so many habits? Dr. Jan points us to a simple doorway, the breath. Consider this mystery. The very first act of life outside the womb is a breath. The newborn cries, air rushes in, and polarity begins. In-breath, out-breath, expansion and contraction, yes and no, light and dark. The dance of opposites is set in motion. From that moment, we are pulled into the rhythm of duality. The breath marks time, and time marks the prison. Now, if breath began the journey into polarity, then breath also holds the key to return. By turning to the breath with awareness, by slowing it, softening it, pausing between in and out, we step back toward the silence before the first cry. Before breath there was life. In the womb we were alive, nourished, sustained yet without breath. That silence is a hint of spirit's true state. Alive without polarity, awake without division, free without confinement. When you sit quietly and watch the breath, you begin to loosen the chain. At first the breath is loud, the chest rises and falls, the body insists on its rhythm. But as awareness deepens, the breath becomes subtler. In becomes smaller, out becomes smaller. The pauses stretch longer. The mind begins to settle. The body begins to still. If you persist, a miracle occurs. The breath almost disappears. It does not vanish into death. It returns to the silence before birth. In that silence, you are alive, but not by breath. You are awake, but not by mind. You are aware, but not by senses. You taste the freedom that exists beyond the polarity of in and out, yes and no. St. Paul once wrote, "I die daily." This is the death he referred to. The daily return to silence, the withdrawal from body and mind into the stillness of spirit. And in that daily dying, there is no loss. There is life abundant, life unbroken, life eternal. You may ask, is it not dangerous to reduce the breath? Will not the body suffer? Understand this. You are not forcing the breath to stop. You are allowing it to settle naturally. The body breathes loudly because the mind is restless. As the mind quiets, the body's demand softens. Breath becomes shallow, then delicate, then almost imperceptible. Yet life does not leave you. Spirit is not dependent on air. Spirit carried you in the womb before air ever touched your lungs. To return to that state in meditation is not to harm the body, but to remind the soul of its origin. It is a rehearsal of freedom. And though at first it may last only moments, those moments are precious. They are glimpses through the gate, reminders that the prison is not absolute. With practice, those glimpses grow. The silence expands. The awareness stabilizes. And gradually you live more as spirit than as a prisoner, more as warder than as inmate. Do not underestimate the simplicity of this technique. The mind will protest, saying, "This is too easy. I need something grand, something complex, something exotic." But the soul requires no complication. Truth is simple. Freedom is direct. It is the mind that craves complexity, because complexity keeps it busy. Simplicity disarms the mind. And in that disarmament, the spirit shines through. Returning to the breath, slowing it, pausing with it, is like placing your feet on a familiar path that leads home. Every step is simple, yet every step brings you closer. If you wander into distraction, return to the breath. If you drown in thought, return to the breath. If you are overwhelmed by desire or fear, return to the breath. It is the doorway always open, always waiting, always near. Through it, you walk back into the silence that reveals your eternal nature. In this practice, awareness blossoms. At first, you are aware of the body, the movements of air, the beating of the heart. Then you become aware of the mind, its chatter, its endless commentary. But if you persist, awareness begins to separate from what it observes. You realize, I am not the breath. I am the one who watches the breath. I am not the thought. I am the one who sees the thought. This separation is the beginning of freedom. For as long as you identify with what you observe, you are bound by it. But when you realize you are the observer itself, you step outside the prison. Awareness is the key that unlocks the gate. The more you live as awareness, the less the body and mind can trap you. And eventually, you discover that awareness is not something you do. It is something you are. Spirit is pure awareness. To live as spirit is to live awake and aware, free from bondage. So practice, beloved, not with strain, but with devotion. Sit, breathe, watch, and let the silence grow. Do not chase visions or powers. Do not measure progress with impatience. Simply return to the breath again and again until the breath itself returns you to silence. In that silence, you will know freedom. Not the freedom of wealth, not the freedom of power, not the freedom of senses, but the freedom of spirit. And once you taste it, even for a moment, you will carry it with you into every moment. You will walk the world as a warder among prisoners, awake among the asleep, aware among the ignorant. And your very presence will remind others of their own forgotten freedom. This is the gift of the practice, and this is the meaning of freedom, awake and aware. Chapter 6. The final reflections on true freedom. Let us now arrive at the heart of the matter, the closing truth that gathers everything we have spoken of into a single flame. Throughout history, humanity has created stories to explain its suffering. We have spoken of enemies outside us, of creatures lurking in shadows, of forces plotting against our peace. We have named them demons, devils, Satans, or dark powers, and we have told ourselves that if only we could defeat or avoid them, we would be free. But I tell you now, these are illusions born of the mind. They are dreams mistaken for reality. When the dream ends, where is the creature? When the mind stills, where is the enemy? The true bondage is not to an external being. The true bondage is to the body and to the mind. As long as you are ruled by them, you are bound. When you transcend them, you are free. No devil chains you but your own ignorance. No enemy keeps you captive but your own identification with what is temporary. The only Satan is sleep. the sleep of spirit lost in body and mind. Freedom, therefore, is not a battle against an outer power, but an awakening from an inner slumber. When you awaken, fear dissolves, anxiety fades, anger loses its hold, for these are not brought upon you by a creature in the sky or under the earth. They are brought upon you by the mistaken belief that you are the body, that you are the mind. When you identify with the body, you will fear death because bodies die. When you identify with the mind, you will fear confusion because thoughts shift and collapse. But when you identify with spirit, eternal and unchanging, what is there to fear? Death cannot touch you. Confusion cannot bind you. Time cannot wither you. You are as constant as the sky, as spacious as the ocean, as luminous as the sun. To live as this spirit is to live free, here and now, not after death, not in a distant heaven, but in the present moment. Consider heaven itself. Many believe heaven is a place to which we travel, a distant reward for good deeds, a paradise after death. But heaven is not experienced with the body, nor is it experienced with the mind. Heaven is the expression of the spirit. When the spirit shines free of body and mind, you are in heaven already. You carry heaven with you wherever you go. To wait for heaven after death is like a man sitting hungry beside a feast, promising himself he will eat tomorrow. Why tomorrow when the food is here now? Why after death when the spirit is eternal now? Heaven is not a location, it is a state. It is the bliss of spirit uncovered, the joy that is uninterrupted, the peace that is constant. Once you realize this, you stop postponing freedom. You live it today. You live it in every breath, every step, every moment. And in this living, you discover that paradise was never elsewhere. It was always within. This is why freedom is the only fulfillment. You may taste pleasures, you may achieve victories, you may gather wealth, but none of these will satisfy for long. They will rise and pass, leaving you emptier than before. Only freedom endures because freedom is not dependent on circumstances. Freedom is the state of spirit unbound, and in that freedom you find joy that does not depend on pleasure, peace that does not depend on conditions, and love that does not depend on approval. This is the gift awaiting every soul. But you must seek it. You must choose it. You must awaken to it. It will not be handed to you by chance, nor will it be forced upon you by decree. It waits like the sun waits for the one who opens the window. The sun does not knock, it shines. You need only open your eyes. Do not be deceived by the world's illusions. The world will tell you that freedom comes from possessions, from positions, from power, from labels. But all these are fragile. They can be taken, they can be lost, they can be destroyed. True freedom cannot be taken, for it does not depend on anything outside you. It lives within, in the spirit. Even in the darkest prison, the spirit can be free. Even in the weakest body, the spirit can be free. Even in the most troubled mind, the spirit can be free. For freedom is not the removal of circumstances. It is the transcendence of them. It is the realization that nothing can touch what you truly are. This realization is the treasure of treasures, the pearl of great price, the jewel beyond value. Seek it, for nothing else will satisfy. Now, let us speak of practice one final time. Many gather knowledge, many read, many listen, many discuss, but few practice. Knowledge without practice is like food stored in a cupboard. It looks rich, it smells inviting, but it does not nourish. Only when eaten does it give strength. In the same way, only when practice does truth give freedom. Choose a simple technique. Return to the breath. Watch it, slow it. Let it guide you back to silence. Or choose a word that points to spirit. Repeat it until the mind quiets and the heart opens. Do not collect many methods and use none. Choose one, practice it, and let it carry you. It is better to walk a single path steadily than to wander 1,000 trails and never reach home. The home is within you, and practice is the walking that leads you there. Remember also compassion. When you awaken, do not despise those still asleep. When you taste freedom, do not mock the prisoners. For you too once slept, you too once were bound, you too once believed the illusions. Let compassion guide you to serve, to share, to help. Be a warder who walks among the prisoners with kindness, not with pride. Offer the key gently, show the way patiently, remind them of what they already carry. In this service, your freedom deepens. For freedom that is hoarded shrinks, but freedom that is shared expands. The more you give, the more you receive. The more you awaken others, the more awake you become. This is the paradox of spirit. In giving you gain, in serving you are served, in setting others free, you become more free yourself. So let us close with this. You are spirit, eternal and unchanging. You are not the body, you are not the mind, you are not the labels you wear. These are garments, tools, masks, temporary coverings. They may be useful, but they are not you. You are the one who wears them, not the garments themselves. You are the sky, not the clouds. You are the ocean, not the waves. You are the light, not the lamp. Know this, live this, and you are free. No circumstance can bind you, no fear can control you, no illusion can deceive you. You will walk in the world as a free soul, awake and aware, carrying heaven with you wherever you go. This is the truth, and this is the invitation. Choose it, live it, share it, and be free. Thank you for listening.